today I have a pretty interesting matchup, Kiryu versus GMK Godzilla. Both essentially remade versions of the original Godzilla that are enhanced further beyond their original power. Only one tends to be considered a good guy, whereas the other is definitely not. Starting off with Kiryu. Kiryu automatically is usually considered to have similar physical strength to the original Gojira. However, we see that he is clearly much stronger, as he is able to throw a 25,000-ton Godzilla around relatively easily, and even lift him pretty well, even fly with him. In the comics, he's even able to fly with Anguirus. In terms of speed, Kiryu is far faster than any man-made aircraft in the real world, not counting those within the Godzilla universe. He's usually able to move well past Mach 40, so definitely faster than most aerial kaiju. He is also quite durable, able to withstand several blasts from Godzilla's atomic breath, and also withstand his own Absolute Zero Cannon. The Absolute Zero Cannon can count anywhere from well above island level to continental and even moon level on some calcs, and the atomic breath he's hit with is stronger than that, so he's potentially moon plus durability, but I usually don't go that high with it, but for this I might. He possesses quite a few weapons. The double maser cannon replaces his original atomic breath. He can technically swap out the Absolute Zero Cannon for an even more amped up version of the double maser cannon, but the Absolute Zero Cannon is likely a more effective weapon, so that's what he'll be using here. He has access to missiles, a jetpack that essentially just rams people, claws, basically Assassin's Creed blades that let you shoot the absolute hell out of you, and much more, like rail cannons and other random stuff he just kinda has on him. Although depending on who pilots him, he not only acts different, but he uses his abilities different, and his power seems to fluctuate as well. He is being piloted by Akane, his normal human pilot. He tends to act more from a range standpoint, acting more defensively rather than offensively, and is usually portrayed as a little bit weaker when she's piloting. However, at the same time, he's more strategic and far less reckless. If Gojira's Soul is piloting, well, he's gonna rush in, rip everything apart, and if he gets himself killed being reckless, well, he doesn't really care. Of course, Kiryu is not without weaknesses. Not only does he have a pretty short battery life of only 2 hours, and things like the Absolute Zero Cannon drain that way quicker, a single use draining it by 40%, but also Akane doesn't pilot from Kiryu himself, rather from a nearby jet. Granted, this jet is kept up with him, meaning it can move at the same absurd hypersonic speeds he can, so it could dodge GMK's atomic breath pretty easily. However, Akane is still very vulnerable within the jet compared to Kiryu himself, meaning she is a very vulnerable target for GMK Godzilla to attack. Now on to GMK Godzilla. Well, he should automatically upscale everything Gojira did, since he is literally just Gojira, but brought back to life even more powerful. However, he doesn't have many feats that really put him much higher than this. He did defeat the Guardian monsters, so you can go ahead and scale him to them, but they are obviously probably the weakest variants of each of their respective kaiju they are. I mean, Guardian Monster King Ghidorah is nothing compared to even Showa or Heisei King Ghidorah, so he's not very powerful. That said, some of Gojira's feats could potentially put GMK Godzilla at Continental, and since he upscales Gojira, he can be a little bit higher. However, Continental feats for the original Gojira are kind of shaky at best, but for this, I'll go ahead and consider them actual feats. In terms of size, once Kiryu lets loose of all of his extra gear, once it's out of ammo and he just ends up sending it flying at GMK Godzilla, he's only slightly heavier than GMK Godzilla, and they are the exact same height, so in terms of physical size and physical strength, they should be relatively even. In terms of agility, it's fairly obvious that Kiryu should be a lot more agilic. Not only can he fly, but he can jump across whole cities, whereas GMK Godzilla might not even be able to jump at all, as he's never really shown any real agility in his movie. IQ, I had to give to Kiryu just because GMK Godzilla is just Gojira's IQ, whereas Kiryu is Gojira's IQ, AI added IQ, and Akane's IQ, so it's kinda not fair. Their IQ would basically be the same. As for raw power, it really depends on how you scale Kiryu, but in my opinion, there's just more evidence that Kiryu is more powerful overall than GMK Godzilla. That's where I see this fight going. GMK Godzilla starts attacking Tokyo out of nowhere. Kiryu's almost immediately called in. Akane pilots at first, does some serious damage to GMK, but GMK manages to survive it through his just sheer durability. After he tries fighting Kiryu and realizes it isn't working, he starts aiming for Akane directly. Akane loses control as Gojira's soul takes over Kiryu, obviously a little pissed off that GMK is targeting his kinda ally, and as soon as this happens, Kiryu just starts ripping GMK Godzilla apart, just piece by piece, blasting him to nothing over the course of like 2 minutes at tops. And it's also possible he just straight up one-shots him with the Absolute Zero Cannon. I think Kiryu stomps GMK pretty easily. I know there's going to be people that definitely disagree with this, but that's how I see this going. And for anyone who's going to bring up that the Atomic Breath can overpower the Absolute Zero Cannon, there's little evidence to support that GMK Godzilla's Atomic Breath can actually match that of 2002 Godzilla's Atomic Breath, or really any of the stronger Godzilla's Atomic Breath for that matter. In fact, the only real comparison we have is Gojira's Atomic Breath, which is nothing compared to the Absolute Zero Cannon. If you liked the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one.